There is a fleeting instant, a razor-thin fracture of time that decides whether you rise above the crowd or vanish into it. A heartbeat so precise, so sharp, that it slices across your destiny like steel cutting silk. It arrives the very moment someone dares to confront you when they cast doubt on your character, question your integrity, throw insults at your nature, or accuse you of something real or imagined. And in that moment, the common man does what he has been programmed to do. Since his earliest years, he scrambles to defend himself. He blurts out the predictable phrases, "I didn't mean it. That's not what I intended. You misunderstood me. I swear I'm not that kind of person." On the surface, these replies appear noble, drenched in sincerity, almost carrying the fragrance of honesty. To the naive, it even sounds reasonable and fair, but to those who truly understand the brutal mechanics of power, those who think like Niccolò Machiavelli, those who grasp how human perception outweighs any objective truth, that instinct to defend is not a shield. It is a wound. It is not strength, but weakness. Because the moment you begin to defend yourself, you are already standing beneath the weight of the accusation. You have confessed not through words, but through your very posture that you felt compelled to answer. And the instant you must answer, the game is already lost. In this world, perception is the only true currency of power. It does not matter who holds the facts, who is right or wrong, who carries proof. What matters is who commands the frame. If your voice cracks, if your eyes dart, if your energy betrays a flinch, no one sees justice. No one sees truth. They see only weakness. They sense vulnerability. And like wolves, they catch the scent of blood. And where blood is found, predators gather. Machiavelli knew this long before most could even articulate it. The one who explains himself has already bent the knee to the accuser, but the one who stands motionless, unshaken, who allows the storm of words to rage around him without blinking, without breaking, that man becomes untouchable, elevated beyond the reach of ordinary attack. Consider this truth with unwavering clarity, defending yourself almost never convinces anyone. It does not wipe away suspicion. It does not erase the stain of judgment. No matter how passionately you argue, no matter how flawless your reasoning sounds, what it really does is shift the battleground away from your command and place it directly into their control. Because to defend yourself is not just to speak, it is to submit. It is to silently acknowledge their authority, to bow to their frame, and to declare without words, "Yes, you have the right to question me, and I am obligated to respond." That single concession, that subtle surrender, is enough to dethrone you before the contest has even begun. Even when you are blameless, even when you are standing on the firm ground of truth, the act of pleading your case makes you look guilty, because desperation is the perfume of the weak, and only the fragile are desperate to be understood. The strong know something far different, something darker, something more effective. They allow silence to carry the weight of their response. They allow the accusation to echo unanswered until it dies of its own emptiness. They know that when another hurls words like knives, those blades often curve back through the air and bury themselves in the hand that launched them. If no defense is offered, a steady silence, an unshaken gaze, an unreadable face, a presence that radiates. Indifference, these weapons strike deeper fear than 1,000 explanations, because when you speak nothing, you do not erase the story, you multiply it. You force others to create their own conclusions, and the human imagination, restless and suspicious by nature, always paints in harsher colors than reality. In your silence, people begin to assume you know more than you reveal. They whisper to themselves that you are in control, that you see further than they do, perhaps even that you are dangerous. That whisper, that silent myth, becomes more powerful than any words you could have spoken. For silence is not emptiness, it is a mirror. And in that mirror others project their fears, their doubts, their all, and that projection itself is power. Machiavelli would lean close and whisper this unshakable law into your ear. He who explains himself becomes small. He who withholds himself becomes myth. And tell me, what force in this world is more powerful than a myth? Myths bend nations. Myths outlive empires. Myths command respect without ever raising their voice. Think back to the figures in your own life you found most formidable, the ones who left a mark on you. Were they the ones who barked endlessly, who shouted to prove their point, who explained and justified every decision? Or were they the ones who could stand in silence and make you question your very ground? The ones who wore stillness like steel armor, who forced you to second-guess your own motives with nothing but an unreadable stare? That, right there, is the aura of the untouchable. Because when you defend yourself, you are not strategizing, you are pleading. You are not wielding power, you are begging for therapy. Craving understanding feels human, but in the game of power it is fatal. Power is not born in the warm glow of being understood. Power is forged in the cold fire of being respected, sometimes even feared, and above all, in being unpredictable. The instant you scramble to explain yourself, you strip away your own mystique. You hand them the keys to your mind, the very leverage you once possessed, and in doing so, you become transparent, predictable, ordinary. But when you withhold, when you choose silence over reaction, when you remain unmoved as though you exist on a plane above the petty attacks of others, something else happens. Your mystery expands. Your shadow lengthens. People do not fear the things they fully see. They fear what they cannot read, what they cannot measure, what they cannot control. And so your silence becomes not emptiness, but presence. And presence, wrapped in shadow, is far more terrifying than any explanation could ever be. Imagine this scene with absolute clarity. You walk into a room, and without warning, someone, perhaps a rival who envies your position, perhaps even a so-called friend hiding quiet resentment, decides to strike. They cloak their attack in humor and sarcasm in a cutting remark. Maybe they mock your success, belittle your past, or highlight some supposed flaw in your character. The air shifts. The room tilts toward the confrontation. Every eye turns, waiting, eager, hungry, to see how you will respond. And what does the average man do? He obeys the script he's been trained to follow since childhood. He defends. He explains himself. He justifies his actions. He tries to restore balance by proving he is not guilty of the charge. And in doing so, he plays directly into the attacker's frame. But the man of strategy, the man who understands that power lies not in noise, but in stillness, he does not flinch. He does not scramble. He does not justify. He lets the jab hang in the air like smoke, thin and choking, until it suffocates its own source. And then something extraordinary happens. The silence grows heavier than thunder. The weight of your stillness fills the room, and the crowd that once looked at the attacker now shifts their gaze to you. Their curiosity multiplies. Why didn't he react? Does he know something the rest of us don't? Is he too elevated, too untouchable to even bother? In that moment, without lifting a finger, you have already reversed the power dynamic. What once appeared to be an insult now reveals itself as insecurity. The audience stops doubting you. They begin to doubt the accuser, and this is where mastery sharpens into a weapon. Because sometimes silence alone is enough, but sometimes the blade must be twisted. Someone calls you manipulative? You tilt your head, smile faintly, almost as if bored, and murmur, if that's how you see it. Someone accuses you of arrogance? You shrug with calm amusement and reply, interesting how confidence unsettles people. Notice what you've done. You didn't defend. You didn't explain. You didn't give them what they were thirsting for. You reframed. And in that single stroke, the accusation no longer operates as a weapon against you. It becomes a confession of the other's weakness. Because what they were really hoping for was your denial. They were waiting for your scramble, your discomfort, your desperate attempt to prove innocence. Instead, you stood there like a mirror, and in that reflection, they saw their own insecurity staring back at them, a reflection they cannot bear. That is the cruelty of power disguised as elegance, turning the attack back onto the attacker, without raising your voice, without breaking your calm. The crowd does not leave remembering their insult. They leave remembering your silence, and silence, when wielded correctly, is louder than any defense. Silence, detachment, and inversion, these are not passive qualities. They are weapons. They are the sharpest tools of the Machiavellian mind, designed not for defense, but for domination. Why do they work? Because the vast majority of people are addicted to validation. It is their invisible lifeline. Even in conflict, even in hatred, what they crave is proof that they mattered enough to disturb you, to bend you, to force you into reaction. When you refuse them that satisfaction, when you remain silent, unmoved, detached, you deny them oxygen. And without oxygen, they begin to suffocate. Watch carefully what happens then. At first, they press harder, repeating their accusations, hoping to extract some sign of life from you. When they get nothing, they escalate. They raise their voice, sharpen their words, exaggerate their stories, because they cannot stand the stillness of your indifference. Slowly, without you lifting a single finger, they begin to unravel before everyone's eyes. What once looked like conviction now looks like desperation. What once looked like courage now looks like obsession. The crowd, once curious about your supposed guilt, now sees only instability in your accuser. And you? You remain untouchable, calm, composed, beyond reach. This is not just theory. This is the hidden law that governs human interaction everywhere, whether in personal relationships, in politics, in business, or in the endless theater of social media. Someone posts about you, mocks you publicly, throws your name into the mud, labels you toxic or dangerous. The average person panics. They rush to clarify. They write paragraphs of explanation, desperate to clear their name, desperate to look innocent. And in doing so, they reveal the one thing that should never be revealed: weakness. Every word of defense is an unspoken confession that the attack landed, that the accuser has power over your image. But the Machiavellian mind does not clarify. It does not scramble to be understood. It reframes, and with a single sentence the power shifts. Someone calls you toxic, you reply. People always call you dangerous when they realize they can't control you. Someone calls you arrogant, you calmly remark, "It's funny how confidence feels like arrogance to the insecure." You don't beg to be seen. You force them to see themselves. And in that inversion, the blade that was pointed at you is now buried in their own chest. The truth is simple. The crowd does not side with the loudest voice. The crowd sides with the calmest presence. The loud burn out. The composed endure. And endurance, in the end, is what creates power. And here lies the coldest truth of all. A truth most people never grasp. Until it is far too late, it is not a good reputation. That makes a man untouchable. But a strong one, the difference is everything. A good reputation is built on being liked, on being agreeable, on constantly explaining yourself so others feel comfortable. But likability is fragile. It bends with the wind of opinion. It shatters with a single rumor. A strong reputation, however, does not bow to approval. It does not chase understanding. It radiates presence. It projects weight. It commands caution without ever demanding it. People may never fully love you. They may never fully trust you, but they will hesitate before they cross you. That hesitation is worth more than all the applause in the world. And how is such a reputation forged? Not with endless words, not with explanations or defenses, but with silence. Every moment you refuse to be baited, every time you remain calm in the face of provocation, you are laying another stone in the fortress of your presence. Stone by stone, glance by glance, your aura thickens until no words can breach it. This is the final stage, the rarest form of power. It is not mere silence, it is something greater. It is aura, a presence so unshakable, so composed, that accusations never even find purchase. They dissolve before they can land, like raindrops on fire. The man who refuses to defend himself is not. Avoiding conflict, he has risen above it. He does not answer, because in his eyes the accuser has no authority to demand an answer. And once others sense this, the trials end. The questions stop. They no longer see him as a defendant, they see him as something else entirely. Not just respected, not just feared, but untouchable. Remember this. Strength resists, but immunity ignores. The world will always test you. It will bait you with accusations, lure you into arguments, tempt you to explain yourself so they can pin you down. But the choice will always be yours. Do you step onto their field, or do you stand above it? Defending yourself places you in their arena, fighting by their rules. But silence forces them to fight shadows, and shadows cannot be defeated. While they waste their breath, while they burn their energy hurling words that vanish in the emptiness of your calm, you grow, you expand your presence, your mystery, your power. You no longer need to argue. You no longer need to win debates, because in the end, the most feared man is not the one who speaks the loudest, or even the one who argues the best. The most feared man is the one who never had to argue at all, because his very silence was already a verdict.